my darlings, I'm Sophie Darling and welcome back to the channel. If you love anime, heartfelt reactions, and deep dives into symbolism and themes, then you're in the right place. Before we jump into today's reaction, don't forget to hit that like button to show some love, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a moment of fun. And if you want even more exclusive content like early access to my reactions, full-length anime watch-alongs, and an amazing community of fellow anime lovers, please do check out my Patreon. You can find a link in the description box below. Your support truly means the world as it helps to keep these reactions coming, and I'd love to have you join our cozy little anime family. Today, we are reacting to episode 21 of series 4 of Attack on Titan. Episode 20 absolutely bent my mind. The fact that every inheritor of the Attack Titan can see future memories of the next inheritors is just crazy. So they can see the future. They can see what happens right up until the end of the Attack Titan, which then begs the question, is Eren the last person to inherit the Attack Titan? Because nobody mentions anybody after him. So does that mean Eren is the last final inheritor of the Attack Titan? Which means if that is the case, then Eren finds a way to prevent the intelligent Titans from ever being passed on to future subjects of Ymir in the future. Because if they're seeing the memories of the future inheritors, there's no one that has been mentioned beyond Eren. Eren is almost seen as the definitive end. But then that begs the question of, is there anybody after Eren? If so, will they make a feature? If not, then that means that Eren is the final one, and potentially all the other intelligent Titans will be wiped out as well, not just the Attack Titan. So that means that maybe Eren finds a way to prevent the intelligent Titans from being passed on to the children of the subjects of Ymir, that they no longer are a threat to humanity as a whole because they no longer exist. They no longer have to wrestle with the fear that one day your baby may inherit these abilities randomly, because if the inheritor dies, the abilities then pass on to a baby. So it prevents that fear of them being passed on to somebody without knowledge. Either way, my mind is still completely blown, and Eren is a big fat liar when he was saying to Mikasa, I've hated you since childhood, because that memory just proved that he definitely didn't hate her because he was lingering on that memory as an adult. He said that to hurt her. He said that to push her away because he wants to protect her. And Zeke got to have some reconciliation with Grisha. He got to see that Grisha wasn't always the monster he's painted him out to be, at least not in relation to Eren. Eren isn't the victim. Eren was born this way. Zeke was made this way. But we now also have Grisha warning Zeke. Eren will get his way because Grisha's seen the future. Grisha knows that Eren's going to get his way, and he's begging Zeke to stop him. But how can Zeke stop him if Eren already knows the future? If Eren already knows what's going to happen? Is there any way for Zeke to actually stop him? Probably not. But Grisha says what he goes on to do is horrible, which we've kind of known was going to happen. We kind of knew that Eren wasn't going to do things that we would necessarily agree with. I've said this from series 1 that Eren would be an amazing anti-hero because he looks the part, he acts the part, he's got the trauma. He also has that incessant anger and drive to keep moving forward, that drive for revenge, that drive and motivation to enact violence against anyone that you believe has wronged you. And I said this from series 1 when he started saying, I will kill all the Titans, I will kill them all. But it's not just Titans. He kept saying, I will kill them all, which then led me to think that goes beyond the Titans. That goes beyond believing that the Titans are the enemy. Those words, kill them all, could also then be applied to anyone that Eren sees as the enemy, that he doesn't believe they deserve to live because they are against him, that they need to be erased in order for him and his people and those he cares about to live and thrive. And we've seen that from series one. So I've said from series one that I believed he would go on this anti-hero trajectory, and that's what I believe is happening here. Again, I think the narrative is doing a very good job at the minute of painting him as an antagonist, as somebody we're supposed to hate, as the enemy, as somebody we're supposed to turn against. But once we learn more, we'll realize that yes, what he does we find morally reprehensible, we find hard to agree with, but the result is heroic in terms of it bringing about peace. It protects the people he cares and loves about, that we wouldn't be able to see any other way for peace to be established. So yes, we'll find it morally reprehensible, we'll find it disgusting, we'll probably think to ourselves like, oh god, I wouldn't have done that, but at the same time we can't see any other way for peace to be established. And this whole point of moving forward is Eren driving himself forward. It's not necessarily something he wants to do, but it's something he has to do. As Armin said in series one, to overcome a monster, we have to become a monster and we have to let go of our humanity. And I think this is Eren living up to Armin's words. He is becoming the monster he needs to be in order to ensure that humanity is safe and protected, that peace is established. He's doing what no one else is willing to do because it's that foul, that disgusting, that terrible that no one else can possibly agree to do it. But Eren can, because he knows it's the only way forward and he's willing to get blood on his hands. And this has all been leading up to this, that Eren does what he believes is necessary to establish peace for Oldia and for the world in general, to prevent further war from taking place, to prevent war from fracturing out and consuming all of humanity into something that will push humanity to the very brink of existence. So yes, I think he's being made to look like the antagonist, but he's not an antagonist, he's an anti-hero, and we'll think what he does is horrible, but at the same time we'll understand the reasoning for it. And it may not be something that we would see ourselves doing from a moral perspective, but I also imagine we'll be put in a position where we find it difficult to condemn as well, because we can't see any other way of it being achieved than how Eren does it. I think that's sort of the great job of the anti-hero, is the morally grey aspect of it. We'll not agree with it, but we can't see any other way around it. And that Eren's just the person that is willing to take on the guilt and shoulder the blame for what he goes on to do in a way that no one else will be able to do it. And he does that because he knows that it's for the greater good of humanity, in the same way that Erwin has committed acts that weren't always ones we could agree with, but at the same time were sacrifices deemed worthy to ensure humanity was protected and safe. So my gist essentially is that we won't agree with it, but we'll also understand why he does it, because we can't see any other way out. But without further ado, we're going to get into episode 21. Okay, we're going back to Frida. Fucking hell. Oh. It's so much more gruesome than when we first saw it in series 3. God damn. He's withholding information, but the question is, why is he withholding information? What doesn't he want Grisha to know? Which is probably Carla dies.
この先、お前の望みは叶わない。叶うのはエレンの望みだ。先の記憶を見た。しかしまさかあんな恐ろしいことになるとは。
Right? The rumbling?
すまない。私はひどい父親だった。お前にずっと辛い思いをさせた。ジジーク、お前を愛してる。もっと一緒に遊んでやればよかったのに。
Poor Zeke.
父さん。ジーク。エレンを止めてくれ。
Eren's not gonna let that happen.
まだ親父が俺に食われるところを見てないぞ。
お前が父さんを
Yeah.
壁の王や世界と戦うように仕向けた。
Yes, he did. What else has he
進
done?
撃の巨人に本当に時を超える能力があるのなら、都合のいい記憶だけをグリシャに見せて
Yeah.
過去に影響を与える
Which is exactly what he's done.
お前の記憶を見るに、始祖の巨人を奪っても自分がその力を使えないことを知っていたから。しかし始祖を奪い、それをお前に託した。もっと先の未来を見たからだ。
あんたが俺を親父の記憶に連れ込んだおかげで今の道がある。親父の記憶から自分の未来を見た。あの景色を。
お前に従ったことを後悔した。お前は全てを見たわけじゃないんだろ。例えばお前がここで始祖の力が使えないことを知らなかったように、お前は無力なままだ。
Oh my god.
無駄だ、エレン。一度動き出したユミルを止めることなど。この世の何者にもできない。
Oh, he definitely only showed Grisha partial memories. I saw it 4 years ago. I saw my own future through Dad's memories. That was when he kissed Historia's hand. So when he kissed Historia's hand, he pulled that face and we were like, he's obviously seen something. It was weird. It was just like such a strange reaction. But something triggered that he was able to see his own future through his dad's memories from making contact with Historia as the royal bloodline. So he saw his future and what he needed to go on to do, which is why when we've said he's been very weird this series, as if he already knows how the future is going to play out, is because he saw his own future through Grisha's memories after making contact with Historia's hand at the end of series 3. So he does already know what's going to happen in the future, how things are going to play out. But as Zeke is saying, you couldn't have predicted that you weren't able to use the founder's powers here, because how could he have seen that? But he maybe did see that he was able to gain access somehow. So maybe this is part of the discovery, but what the fuck, man? From you 2,000 years ago. Fuck? Okay. Round circle. Round circle moment, guys.
すごいよヒストリア。もうこんなに読めるようになるなんて。ダメだよ鼻水垂らしてちゃ。ヒストリアはもうちょっと女の子らしくしないと。はい、噛んで。
Frida was such a good sister to Historia.
お、女の子らしくって何？そうだね。女の子らしくっていうのは。
I feel like that's where a lot of Aaron's care for Historia comes from, is also the memories of Frida. That love and admiration is also Frida's memories
い
and
つも
care.
他の人を思いやってる優しい子だからね。
Are we learning about YMIR's past? Why do we never see her eyes? They're almost always jotted out. It's weird. She was enslaved.
この世界は辛くて厳しいことばかりだから。みんなから愛される人になって。
Was her tongue ripped out so she can't communicate?
助け合いながら生きていかなきゃいけないんだよ。
豚を逃がした者がいる。名乗り出よ。でなければ全員から片目をくり抜く。
Because it looked like that guy's tongue was getting ripped out, but maybe not. Maybe I've misinterpreted it, but they blamed her, didn't they?
逃がし
Why?
たのはお前か。
She's so young. And she just accepts the punishment.
よかろう。お前は自由だ。
Are they hunting her down like an animal? Oh my god. Oh, Emir. This is how she gains her abilities, right? Does she hide in the tree? And that's why the Titan put Ela in the tree, because that was connected to the founder. So it was like the tree has significance to Emir, so this is where the significance comes in. That maybe through the tree she gains her abilities. Poor Emir. Colonized, abused, enslaved, and then mistreated by everyone around her. What the? What the fuck? So the tree gave her abilities. Well, not the tree, but the little centipede within the tree.
我が奴隷ユミル、お前はよく働いた。
My slave, you scumbag. That's when they start weaponizing her, right?
道を開き、荒れ地を耕し、峠に橋を架けた。褒美だ。我の子種をくれてやる。フリッツの名のもと、憎き回れを滅ぼせ！
Fuck, man. The stark symbol to Historia being pregnant as well. Not only does he abuse her, he also makes her into a breeding machine. Oh, Emir. I could cry. What a scumbag he is. It's because of her they were able to grow the empire. Emir! Why would you sacrifice yourself for that man? She's so traumatized that she's confused it with love.
お前がやりごときで死なぬことは分かっておる。我が奴隷ユミルよ。
Maybe she does want to die because of you. Poor girl's never had a moment of freedom.
娘たちよ。何としてでもユミルの力を引き継ぐのだ。ユミルの体をすべて食い尽くせ。マリア、ローゼ、シーナ。
So they are the daughters of Emir and the king.
娘たちよ、子を産み、増やし続けよ。
These children were just weapons and a means to an end.
娘が死ねば背骨を孫に食わせよ。孫が死ねばその背骨は子から子へ。
Poor Emir's never known peace. Her children have never known peace. All for somebody's greed and vanity. Poor girl.
我が五章においても我がエルディアはこの世の大地を個体で支配し、
Was that the
我が巨
colossal?
人は永久
Or
に
just colossal
君臨
titans in
し
general
続
she's building?
け、我が世が尽きぬ限り永遠に。
俺がこの世を終わらせてやる。俺に力を貸せ。お前は奴隷じゃない。神でもない。ただの
He's
人だ。
appealing to her.
誰にも従わなくていい。 お前が決めていい。決めるのはお前だ。お前が選べ。ユミル、俺の命令に従え。
He's giving her a chance to fight back.
俺をここまで導いたのはお前なのか。
今すぐやれ。
You're the one that led me here
待っていたんだろう。
to be freed.
ずっと。
俺は王家の血を引く者だ。
2000年前から誰かを。
To free you. She's gonna fight back. We actually see her eyes now. Somebody fighting for her for once, for a change. Oh my god. It begins. Oh my god. I didn't expect it to be this episode. So what the fuck is that little... It's like a little centipede thing that's given them their abilities to be able to, like, become titans. She's built all the colossals within the walls, right? Eren's appealing to her. He's like, I will end this world. I will prevent this from continuing. I will destroy the world. But also he will end her slavery. That's all she's ever wanted, is someone to fight for her, to stand up for her. And he's appealing to that sentiment of, you're nobody's slave. You deserve to be free. And if you give me the ability, I will grant you that. I will give that to you. And he even says, was it you that brought me here? So she must have brought him here. I fucking knew that Rose, Cena, and Maria had to be the daughters because they were remembered within the walls. They form the walls, so they were of royal significance. Had Ymir even died? Or did he just presume she was dead and then just butchered her body so the daughters could consume her? And then force them to breed so that the descendant after descendant after descendant carried on this ability, so that this ability could be used and weaponized to bring about the glory of the Aldean Empire, all for one man's greed and vanity and legacy. But at what cost? At the cost of enslaving a poor woman to enact the will of the royal family for generations, to never be free, to always be mistreated, used, abused, for her children to be mistreated, used, and abused. You can understand where Zeke is coming from in terms of wanting to prevent this cycle from continuing, from the cycle from happening. That all of this is linked to the idea that this power should fluctuate and continue and should be immortalized. You can also understand where Carl Fritz is coming from, that he wants to end the cycle, hence the vow preventing the founding titan from being used for war, because that's what it was used for from the very get-go. Ymir was so traumatized and, I guess, in that Stockholm syndrome, that she sacrificed herself as somebody that only ever saw her as a means of power and control, as a means to enact his will on the Malians, to kill the Malians, to take their land, to breed this power into the people, forcing his daughters to do the same, telling them that if they die, feed their spines to my grandchildren, so that this power continues and that there's no escape from this ability, that everyone is cursed by this ability. So you can understand where they're coming from in terms of wanting to erase the audience, in terms of believing that this ability shouldn't be allowed to continue, to be allowed to thrive, because it's an unnatural origin and that it's been used for centuries to abuse others, to colonize, to ethnically cleanse. You can understand why they don't want it to continue. But at the same time, you also have to look at it from the perspective of they still deserve an opportunity to live because they are not their ancestors. They are not the people from the past. Yes, the ability itself should never be, but should they be condemned for a sin that they never participated in? That's kind of the moral question that comes into it. But Ymir, God love her, never had anyone to defend her, never had anyone who had her back, was always willing to accept the blame and guilt for others. And even when she was freed, it was to be hunted down like she was nothing more than an animal, in the same way that Faye was hunted by dogs and torn apart by dogs. She has never lived for herself, and the fact that her eyes are blacked out, we never see her eyes, but when Eren gives her that opportunity to fight back, tells her that together they can destroy the world, they can avenge the past, and they can free her from the control of the royal family so that she no longer is bound or enslaved. That's when we finally get to see her eyes. We get to see the emotion behind them. But she's been numb to it for so long. She's always enacted the will of others, never what she wanted. She was a puppet to be used and abused. And Eren is giving her that opportunity to be free, telling her that she has a voice, that she has the ability to stand up for herself. And now to see her eyes come into fruition, it's because it's like for the first time in 2,000 years, she's able to live for herself. She's able to be herself. She's able to enact what she wants, what she desires, and not just the will of others. She can stand up against the cruelty that's been enacted upon her by others and by this world. In a sense, also trying to end the suffering, but in a different way that doesn't result in the subjects of Ymir being wiped out from the world as they know it. But I can't imagine being Rose, Maria, and Sina and being told you have to eat your mother, you have to take on her abilities, and then you also have to allow your children to do the same thing to you. One of you has to gain this ability because it can't just be lost, it can't die out. Again, that's why Eren is so against the idea of Historia being bred for the same purpose, that her children only live in conjunction with the idea of their connection to the Titans, to the founding Titan, to being used so that the founding Titan can enact pain and suffering on others. He doesn't want future generations to undergo that. He doesn't want Historia to have to continue to breed children so that they can be manipulated and used in turn, because that's what the royal family descendants have been used for, is to be this power to wield against the world. They've never really been free from the founding Titan. They've always been destined to enact its will, but also to punish Ymir in a sense, because it's through her that they're able to control the abilities. They have to use her, command her, enslave her. So they are slaves, but Ymir is also a slave. The royal family, the bloodlines, they've never been free of the expectations that have been enforced upon them because of their blood, because of who they're connected to. But likewise, Ymir has been enslaved too for 2,000 years. She's never been able to live for herself, and Eren's appealing to that. And that's why she rebels against what has been enacted upon her. For the first time, she stands up against the royal family. She says, no, enough is enough. She rebels against it. And again, she knew that Eren would be the one to do this, because he says, is this why you've sent for me? So he knows that the memories have come from Ymir, and he knows that part of that is because he's the only one that can free her, because she knew that he would be able to free her. She knew that he was so obsessed with this idea of ending enslavement, of people being truly free to live their lives how they please, how they wish, to not be slaves of another, that he would be able to get through to her, that he would be able to end this cycle and to grant her the ability to rebel against the royal bloodline that has used and abused her for 2,000 years. She knew that Eren would be the one to do it, which is why she chose him to send the memories to. And I knew that it would be bound up. Eren's obsession with the idea of freedom, of ending enslavement, his passion when it comes to reacting against anyone that would dare to take away someone's ability to be free, had to be bound to the memories of Ymir. When it started to come out that she was enslaved, I knew it had to be linked. And now I'm wondering, it says that Eren was born that way, and Eren goes on to stab all those people in relation to Mikasa. Was that Eren, or could that be Ymir acting through Eren? Did Eren have received the memories far sooner than we realize? Because we see him have those memories in the field with Mikasa just before the wars kick in. But what if that's that's not the first time he received the memories? What if he received those memories sooner, far beyond then? Meaning that would sway his behavior when it came to the traffickers, because if it's Ymir influencing Eren through those memories, he's going to be so het up at the idea of what he's seen this poor girl go through, enslaved and abused for 2,000 years, that the idea of someone else doing that to another girl, Mikasa, causes him to go into a fit of rage. And that's why he goes on this violent rampage against them, and it's insatiable violence. It's violence that he almost can't restrain. He's that angry. He's that hell-bent on punishing them. And now I'm wondering if that's because he received the memories far sooner than we realize he's received them. That when he got those memories in the field, that's not the first time he's seen those memories. It's more a flashback, but he's had the memories sooner. Because if he has, then he would see parallels between Ymir and Mikasa, who was enslaved and abused, and Mikasa, who was enslaved and being sent to be abused by others in the city. So he would see the parallels there, and that would cause him to then act out because of what he knows happened to Ymir and what he knows could potentially happen to Mikasa, because the world is just that cruel, and he wanted to prevent that from happening because he's so against this idea that people can enslave others, can abuse others. So maybe if he has received that, that would explain his behavior then, because it hasn't really explained it, other than it's just kind of put it down to that's just Eren, that's just who his personality is. But now I'm thinking it could be to do with the memories Ymir sent to him, that he received them far sooner than we realize he's received them, that the time in the field wasn't the first time. According to legend, the founder Ymir obtained the power of the Titans when coming into contact with something. For generations, her blood and power passed down by the audience. However, the identity of that something which began it all remains unknown. It may have been some type of pathogenic parasite, a god who pitied the founder Ymir and gave her power, or something else entirely. It's like a little centipede. It's very weird looking. And then it like spiraled out into like Eren's head, and it's weird. It's very it is parasitic looking, but I didn't know how to describe it until this said parasitic. I was like, centipede? It kind of looks like a centipede. But poor Ymir, she never got to live a life that was truly her own. She was colonized, abused, forced to be breeding stock, and that parallel with Historia, where they're both sat on that rocking chair and Ymir is pregnant, and Historia being practically identical in terms of being sat in the rocking chair with the pregnancy bump. Both of them are slaves to this idea that the abilities of the royal bloodline have to be passed down because of its connection to the founder. They're both slaves to that. Historia also has to enact that. She has to have an heir because she's the royal. She has to have an heir because of the connection to the founding titan. She has to have an heir to protect herself from being used in terms of being forced to eat Zeke so that the abilities can pass on to her. She has to essentially have a child to protect herself, to continue the royal line, but also to continue the connection to the founder. Historia is a slave in a way too, like Ymir, in that they're both being forced to breed for the sole purpose of the connection to the royal bloodline. Hence why it's so striking, the similarities between them, and also the fact that this is taking place, that memory of it is taking place based on Frida telling Historia about the girl in the book, but the girl in the book's Ymir, not Krista, but it stems from that. Because what's interesting is that when Frida shows her the book, it's of a girl called Krista, but when she's showing her the book now, it's Ymir and Ymir's flashback, and she's saying, you like her too. To be ladylike is to be like her. Because it's almost as if they're passing down that history, that connection, but it's just the similarities between Ymir and Historia that's so striking, that we get this flashback to Ymir's past based on this book that Frida is showing Historia. But in series 3, it was about a girl called Krista, and that's how Historia gets the name Krista, but it's actually about Ymir. That's how the connection comes, and she says, you like her too, and Historia's like, yes. And now it's like they're very alike. They both have suffered at the hands of the royal bloodline immensely. Both of them have been nothing more than something to be used and abused because of their connection to the founding titan, but also the royal bloodline. What the fuck is that?
エレンがいた場所から出現したよう
It
に見え
moves like a snake.
た。あれは
やったんだ。エレンが真っ先に地鳴らしを発動したなら、それはきっとエレンの意志だ。このまま周りにどこどこ集ってる連合軍を潰すつもりなんだよ。エレンは味方だ。そうに決まってる。
It's a terrifying sight. Imagine being
ジーク、
Marley in the world and seeing this.
エレン帰ってきたの。私たちのところに。
これはまさか味
It
方。
can't be. What?
ウォールマリアの壁まで崩壊している。
All the walls have
マ
come
ーレの
down.
連合軍を潰すだけならこんなに必要ないよ。
Because that's not the point. He's wiping out half the
外
world.
撃だけで十分だ。壁を失ってまで攻撃するなんて。マーレに集結した連合軍を潰すだけなら、それだけならこんなに。
全てのユミルの民に告ぐ。
今エレンの声が。
They all do.
俺の名はエレン・イエーガー。始祖の巨人の力を介し、全てのユミルの民へ話しかけている。俺の目的は、俺が生まれ育ったパラディ島の人々を守ることにある。しかし世界はパラディ島の人々が死滅することを望み、この島のみならず全てのユミルの民が殺され尽くすまで止まらないだろう。俺はその望みを拒む。壁の巨人はこの島の外にある全ての地表を踏み鳴らす。
Fuck.
そこにある命をこの世から駆逐するまで。
Holy shit. I didn't expect it to be this episode, the rumbling. I thought like it would be an entire episode to itself, but no, we get the Ymir flashback and then the rumbling. But I guess it makes sense in terms of story trajectory because it's through appealing to Ymir that he's able to gain the ability to trigger the rumbling. But as Armin said, I always knew it wasn't going to be a test rumbling because the intention was always to just bring down a portion of the wall. But I had a feeling it was never just going to be that. It was going to be more than just that. So in Aaron's mind, the only way to truly establish peace is to wipe out the rest of the world. I thought maybe he would wipe out a portion, but I didn't think he'd wipe everyone out. Again, I guess it's a matter of just waiting and seeing what happens, but I don't know. I always thought like it would be he'd attempt to wipe out half the world at least. Not that it's something I agree with because it's still ethnic cleansing. It's still a form of genocide on other people. But I had a feeling that in his mind, his idea would be to rebuild by taking out half the population to rebuild with what was left and establish peace. But from the sounds of it, every last life beyond our shores is wiped out. So basically anyone that is not within paradise is going to be wiped out. But that also includes all the audience outside of paradise, because he says the war titans will trample every inch of the world beyond this island until every last life beyond our shores is wiped out. My goal is to protect the people of Paradise Island, the place I was born. So he doesn't actually care about the lives beyond the walls. It's only those within paradise that he's intent on protecting. Can you imagine how jarring that must be? I can imagine like Aaron speaking to you within your head and you're like transported to this desert place where you're able to see the tree and his voice is in your head and you're like, am I going mad? Am I imagining this? No wonder Connie has his like hands over his ears because he's like, what the fuck's going on? And Historia is sat there looking quite emotional over it. Like her eyes are glistening as if like she can't believe that this is happening, but also she's not shocked. Armin clocked on. He was like, he's on our side. And then he's like, wait a second, this isn't just about bringing down the global alliance. This is about destroying the world as they know it. So that thing moving in front, is that Eren? It's very creepy looking. Like the way it moves. Like I don't like how it looks. It's really creepy looking. But that must be Eren at the front leading the Colossals. He's taking charge. He's directing them. I wonder what happened with Zeke, because the parasitic went over Zeke as well and then Eren transformed. So I don't know what's happened to Zeke. If Zeke has survived that, or if Zeke has just ended up being like amalgamated into whatever Erin's become. It's your choice. You get to choose. Do you want to stay here for eternity, or should I end this? You've been waiting this whole time. Were you the one who led me here until the world's end for eternity? And it's Erin that breaks her from that. She's listening still to the words of the king, where he's saying that this will continue for eternity. Our Titan shall reign supreme for eternity. Even after I pass, will dominate the land with its monstrosities. And it's Eren that shakes her from that. That you don't have to believe this. You don't have to continue to pursue this. You can be free once and for all. Just grant me your ability to do so. Grant me the ability to erase the world as you know it. Well, erase the world and protect his people within it, but still that would allow her to be free of the rule of the royal line. So the tree begins to spiral out as the daughters consume the body, because it's showing the connection. So when Emi is in the in-between, there's a single line, which is the tree, but then you begin to see it branch out when the daughters consume the ability, showing that the power is spreading between. It gains 3 branches, which is Maria, Rose, and Cena. Each of them gain the abilities. She's the anchor and they're the branches, because through them and their breeding and multiplying, the power continues. It gets passed down from descendant to descendant to descendant, so that everyone then eventually gains the ability, which is why when we see the tree, there's so many branches spreading out, because everyone is connected. This ability has been bred for generations, from one family to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. So everyone has this ability. This power has been bred from her and her children onwards. The power should have died with Ymir, but because of the king's greed, he wouldn't allow it. It had to be passed on from the generation. So everyone essentially has been condemned because of him and his inability to let go of that power. And it's like every time she looks at it, there's more branches, there's more lines coming out, because more people are being born, more are gaining this ability that connects them all to her. And she's just entrapped, enslaved for the rest of time. She should have been allowed to live. She should have been allowed to rest in peace, but alas, she wasn't granted that opportunity, not granted that ability. When he says to her, "What are you doing? Get up. I know you won't die from a mere spear, my slave Ymir." It's almost like she chooses to die in that moment. She chooses to give up. She doesn't want to continue. She doesn't want to live. But I don't know whether she was officially dead or they just presumed she was dead. But maybe that was her chance to be free. She said, in this moment, I have the opportunity to continue living this life, or I can be free of this. And she decides to die in order to grant herself freedom, not expecting that he would then condemn their daughters to continue on this power, to continue this for centuries and generations to come. She probably thought that with her death, this would be the end, but no. She then has to watch essentially with horror as her daughters consume her body, and it branches out, and then more and more branches become added, because it's now to the point where there is no way to prevent this power, because it's that rooted within the generations. They've all become slaves to the king's greed, and she has to watch that happen. She has to watch the generations gain this ability, knowing what this ability can do, knowing the harm that it can cause, and there's nothing she can do to stop it. It's essentially thanks to Ymir that the Ordian Empire is even a thing. Without her, none of this would have come into fruition, none of this would have come into existence. But I guess it also comes down to the question of, none of these people really should have been born if not for Fritz's greed. When Eren says, "I should never have been born," I wonder if it falls back into this ideology that if Ymir had just been allowed to die in peace, the abilities would have died with her. No one else would have been condemned to have this ability. The subjects of Ymir would have just continued to live as normal people. They wouldn't have had the ability to turn into Titans. It's through Fritz's greed and demand that his children and grandchildren continue to breed and have children, numerous children, to pass this ability on, that we see everyone being condemned for this ability, which they never asked for, they never wanted. It all comes down to Fritz. What a fucking horrible person he is. Used and abused poor Ymir bred her like she was nothing more than cattle just because he was that ambitious and that greedy that he wanted her ability, and then forced his poor daughters to consume their mother because he couldn't just allow her to die in peace. He had to control her even in death. But you can absolutely understand why the rest of the world hate them. You can understand that. You can see why they hate them and you can see why they fear them. But it's also hard to justify wanting them erased and dead because of the past, because of the history, because they weren't participants in it. They never asked for this. They weren't guilty of the sins of the past. So it's hard to reconcile this idea of erasing them, of getting rid of them entirely, because they never asked to be born in the first place, never asked for these abilities. But you can also understand the other perspective of why the world and the Mardians fear them, why they don't want them to exist, because of the threat that they pose, because of how unnatural essentially it is, or it seems. You can understand all perspectives, and that's why I love this show. It is very complicated. It's very hard to align yourself with either side because you don't want the audience to suffer and be punished and to pay the price for sins of the past that they never participated in, that they were never involved in, that it doesn't feel fair. But at the same time, they were never meant to really be. It was because of Fritz's greed and lust for power that they came to hold this power to begin with. This power wasn't ever meant to be theirs. It was meant to die out when Ymir died. It wasn't meant to filter through the generations of subjects of Ymir. So you can understand this whole idea of they never should have been born, they never were meant to be, but because of Fritz's greed, they are. But at the same time, I also don't want the rest of the world to be wiped out, because I also don't believe that it's fair that they should suffer for something that isn't their fault either. There are innocents there too. I don't believe that they should be wiped out just so Paradise can live. I don't believe even Paradise has that right to justify wiping out an entire race of not just one race of people, but numerous races of people to justify their own existence. Because again, it's just falling back into that cycle of ethnic cleansing and genocide. It's hard though, because I can't think of any alternative. I can't think of any solution that would result in everyone being able to live and coexist in peace and harmony. And I think that's why I find the show so morally difficult from my perspective, is that you can understand everyone's perspective, but none of it is good in the end. You know, Zeke's plan would still have led to the ethnic cleansing of the people of Paradise. Karl Fritz's plan was still an ethnic cleansing of the Ordian people under this idea that they needed to be punished for the sins of the past. Eren's plan is none of the people in Paradise will die, but everyone else is going to die, and that includes the subjects of Ymir that are not in Paradise, because I only care about Paradise and the people in Paradise. I don't give a fuck about everyone else. Even the subjects of Ymir that don't deserve to die. So again, he's just committing mass atrocities for the sake of allowing Paradise to live, but at what cost? It's the erasure of everyone else and numerous races of people being wiped from this planet. I can't see Armin and the others just allowing him to go unchecked. I can't see them standing by and allowing him to go on and do this. I feel like they're going to try and reason with him, but I think we're going to see a lot of people die in the process. I don't know if he'll be successful in wiping out the entirety of the rest of the world. I think maybe he'll be successful somewhat, but I don't know if he will be able to fully accomplish what he aims to do. Maybe he starts to lose steam or realizes that there's no justification for wiping out the rest of the world. Maybe he starts to doubt his own plan. Maybe he gets second thoughts and he decides enough is enough. He's committed enough atrocities that he decides that what he has done is enough of a deterrent that he doesn't need to wipe out the rest of the world. But I'm very scared for the next couple of episodes, for what we're about to witness, for what we're about to see. But it's great that we get to see Ymir's perspective, her flashback, the similarities between her and Historia, but also the similarities between her and Mikasa in terms of them being enslaved and being used by others. It's also interesting to see how Eren is granted the opportunity, he's appealing to her, and whether that the memories that he did receive from Ymir were memories that he's received prior to episode 1, because I think that would go a long way in terms of explaining his behavior in terms of attacking the traffickers that took Mikasa, because it does seem very out of the blue, and he puts it down to, I was just like that from birth. But I think there's more to it than that. That's all I can really think of to say for now. I'm sure there's going to be people like, well, you didn't discuss this. Unfortunately, I can only discuss what comes to my mind in the moment. If I have missed anything, I will include it in a future intro. But for now, I can't think of anything more to say than what I have already said. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to help boost this video into the algorithm. And until next time, bye!